right, welcome back. And right now I want to have a very interesting conversation when it comes to matters sex education in schools. But before we have this conversation, I want to listen into, rather not listen in, but take a look at this particular video. And then we'll be telling you why we're actually taking a look at this particular video and then come back. So the person on that particular video is one Taslin Otieno. She's part of the Nguvu Change leaders and other champions here. I believe you definitely know Taslin, but then let me now introduce the right man to have this particular conversation when it comes to sex education in schools, because it is one issue that has really caused uproar when it comes to at homes, even the parliament. You remember back in 27th of July, this particular year, the National Assembly was discussing this and there was a whole debate on it. And this particular morning we'll be having that. Emirias Malis, aka Dambalesh, he's an advocacy champion for sexual and reproductive health, health rights basically, and also in and working with the Network for Adolescent and Youth Africa. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
I'm curious, why Dambala? Is it also your name? It's just an AKA.
So yeah, it is my name. Back in the days, my mother's mother was like
your grandma.
Yeah, my grandma used to call me that name, so I decided to maybe embrace it now as I'm this big guy. Yeah.
It's Ethiopian.
Yeah. I'm born in Ethiopia and raised in Kenya. Yeah, I've studied here in Kenya.
All right.
I currently live here in Kenya.
No, I'm curious about your whole calendars and everything. We'll be getting to that as we finish. Can you attend? And then another right man for this conversation, Sylvia Awinja. And she's advocacy champion on matters now girl child education. And you're also the leader of this Nguvu Change.
Yes.
When was it started?
We started last year. In December we had a training, and we trained several young people on matters to do with girl child education, sexual and gender-based violence. Basically, we're just talking about sexual reproductive health rights. Yeah.
So it's a year old.
Yeah, but it previously we were working with change.org.
Okay.
Yes.
And then now you decided to form Nguvu Change.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you definitely telling us the whole reason why, but 1 year on, how many of you are there? Is it just the two of you plus Taslin, or
no, yeah,
the other faces behind it?
There's so many faces behind it. We're actually more than 30 people, and we are working on different petitions, different topics, empowering young people and the youths in general. Yeah.
But at the back of your head, in your heart, girl child remains a soft spot for you.
For me, yeah, because I think I grew up in a community whereby girl child empowerment was not so much, because many young people, like in the Lakeside region, I come there. There was sex for fish, whereby like young people are forced to go and like sell their bodies so that they could get fish, or when maybe you want to get money to go to school, so you go exchange that for like education. You get money to go and pay for your school fees.
Right.
So you see, girl child education is very close to my heart, because you find like many young people had to get pregnant like during, they don't know about education, like sex education. So they had to get pregnant and maybe most of them dropped out of school. Yeah.
There's one publication, sorry to cut you short, there's one publication that I was reading, and you quoted, talking about, your personal story, your mom and all that. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, so my mom gave birth to me when she was still a teen, and she had to drop out of school so that she could take care of me. And I wouldn't want any young person to go through that, because she had to struggle. I saw her struggling on a daily basis so that she could put food on the table for me. And that forced me to not continue. After Form 4, I couldn't continue with my education because I had to help her out. And she didn't have that fees to help me further my studies.
All right.
Yeah. So this is just me wanting to change the narrative for other young girls outside there.
Good stuff, good stuff. And Hermes, the fact that even we have, formed the foundation of this conversation, I want to now take a look at, because we talk about sex education and we talk about education, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development has to be at the heart of this conversation.
Yeah.
So when you take a look at its Q&A, because it's an institution, it will definitely post the kind of questions that it always gets. So there's one interesting bit that I got. So KCD, so it was asked, is there a whole comprehensive education, sex education? It says comprehensive sex education is not advocated in CBC. When you just take a look at that, what do you feel?
I feel really bad about it. One, I started this online petition because I feel like we are suffering as a nation in terms of teenage pregnancy, in terms of early child marriages, in terms of FGM, that's harmful traditional practices that we undergo in our different communities. So, I feel as a nation we should embrace sexuality that is age-appropriate human sexuality education, as the government calls it. It's vital because it will make young people make informed decisions and take up these good spaces that they can grow and use it as a stepping stone for their lives to come. Yeah.
All right. And when you talk about age appropriate, according to you, even as you continue the whole advocacy, and you're here representing Naya, what age are we talking about here?
So I'll just pose you with a question. The youngest girl who has gotten pregnant and delivered in Kenya, she's 9 years, I think, that we have recorded. Yeah, so basically, age-appropriate human sexuality education should be incorporated in our primary schools. I saw a video shared on TikTok where a young child, basically 5 or 6 years old, talking about having sex and basically, I have the video in my phone. The kid was actually saying that beshte yake, they were trying to engage in a sexual activity. And then they came at home with that discussion. And the parent was really shocked about it. So seeing such scenarios and having statistics that are very high. These are not just numbers that we are speaking. We are speaking about real things that are happening within our communities. So embracing age-appropriate human sexuality education or sex education is really important.
All right.
Yeah.
And I can see you shaking your head, and even as you coming into this, he had mentioned statistics and how really it is important for it, and even for the benefit of the viewer. Allow me to take a look at some particular data. Now, this is according to the Kenya Health Information Systems. Talk about the over 110,821 pregnancies from January to May. Now, this is this year. So, into context for these particular numbers, of this 110,821 pregnancies, about 6,110 pregnancies, children aged between 10 to 14. And meanwhile, 104,711 out of the 110 are between 15 to 19. Another important bit, now this is 2023. So in 2017, there's a research by GOtv Institute saying that more than a third of Kenyan teens have had sex. I mean, it's what you talk about.
Yeah.
So these particular numbers, what do you really read into it?
Like, we see like in just 5 months of 2023, more than 6,000 young girls are pregnant between the age of 10 to 14 years. And the numbers are really like, they are speaking out loud. We don't need to like speak about it because we can just see, it is evident that we need the introduction of comprehensive sexual education, because it will equip our young people with not only knowledge, it will equip them with skills. And it's not that we are promoting for sex education, but we know that an informed nation is an empowered nation. So like they'll be able to have like that healthy relationships. And I think as parents, we should be able to also have that open talk with our children, so that they can be able to understand that what sexuality is all about.
Right.
And I think our government doesn't understand what actually comprehensive sexual education is all about. I think they think it's all about teaching our children how to have sex. But that is not it. Basically, it's about equipping with the right knowledge, the right attitude, and them knowing about their bodies, about their physical and biological aspects.
All right.
Yeah.
And it's curious because the fact that you say the government seems not to understand what sex education really entails. I mean, as I was saying, generally July 27th, there's a whole debate in the National Assembly on this. Yeah. Now, Emras, when it comes to this particular detail, the WHO has given a technical guidance on what comprehensive sexuality education really is. And it actually says that it indicates age 5 as that age that this education should start. Because technically the curriculum starts when the child is at that particular age. Yeah. What is there? So what's the gap? Is it the fact that the policymakers don't follow this particular technical guidance given by WHO?
So what I'll say is that first, ignorance. I think it's the big issue that we are facing here. And then even Kenya, we have good policies. Like in 2015, we have the adolescents and youth sexual and reproductive health policy, which CAC was a component on its own in the policy document, but implementation of that policy document, it's not done yet. So we have clear guidelines, we have clear policies, we have good progressive policies that really shows us that we should embrace age-appropriate human sexuality education. But we tend to ignore what we are putting on paper so that it could govern us as a nation. Or embracing it is an issue. I really don't know what's up with what's happening or what's going on. Because if you see, we have if we talk about teenage pregnancy, we are talking about new HIV infections. because teenage pregnancy, it's unprotected sex, and then it leads to that. If we talk about unprotected sex, there is new STIs infections. We have even unsafe abortions from the teenage pregnancies. You see, so we really have a bigger issue. We just have to embrace age-appropriate human sexuality education. Yeah, and all of these, our issues will reduce or disappear, I believe so.
Right.
Yeah.
And even as we touch on the whole issue on the ground, and I'm curious, what are some of the common yet unsafe, behaviors which are prevalent in the country when it comes to whole sex education?
So there's that unsafe abortion that will be happening because you are a young person, you are pregnant, and because you don't want to tell your parents that I'm pregnant, you'll go look for maybe a midwife who will perform an unsafe abortion to you, and and because of the moral values, like the community in our African community, we don't want to talk about sex. So you'll get that we'll have
it's more of a taboo thing in our communities. Like from where I come from, we have a lot of immigrants in our place. I come from Usili, that is Kamkunji sub-county. So in Kamkunji sub-county, and unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm really angry saying this. In one of the wards, that is the air-based ward, which I come from, we have condoms over the counter. That is pharmacists and chemists. They sell over the counter. If you go to the upper Isili, that is the Isili North and the California, Pumwani, and we have a barrier of lacking condoms over the counter. The chemist and the pharmacist don't sell condoms over the counter. And that's a bigger issue in terms of me as a young person. I'm informed. I want to engage myself in any sexual activity. I know I should use a protection while I'm doing so, but I just walk into a chemist, and if I ask for a condom, I'm like, and someone who is doing something bad or something, that's very bad. I feel like we are really struggling in terms of embracing this age-appropriate human sexuality education. And by saying that, if we do embrace it, there's very good positive outcomes that will be there. In terms of the numbers of teenage pregnancy will reduce in each counties. The numbers of HIV infections, new HIV infections among teenagers especially will reduce. The numbers of STIs, the numbers of even giving that child that information will make that child be informed, and it will make that child take actions that are very informed actions. In terms of if currently in Migori we have cases about FGM and teenage pregnancy being done in the Courier County. So if the young people are informed with sexual and reproductive health information, they will take actions in terms of if anataka kupozwa na mzazi wake, anajua this is not my legal age of me getting married. I'm still a young child. I should be going to school, doing certain stuff, and not getting married or undergoing female genital mutilation. You see? So uninformed, as she said, uninformed youth is, if we inform our youth, we inform the future of the country.
And I'm curious because nashanga sasa, even for your winja, ukiona msichana ambaye hajafika hiyo 18 years and she's pregnant, in your mind, what goes through your mind? Unafikiria hapa shida ilianza na nani? Because at the end of the day, maybe you can just pick it up. For example, ilikuwa msichana, maybe she's 17 years, alafu maybe the boyfriend who's also 17 years. They're engaged in sex. So at the end of the day, who is to blame really? Unadhani ni nani anafaa kupointiwa? Because venye nasema, inafaa ianze at the age of even 5. WHO inatuambia tufunze watoto as early as 5 years old, depending on when you utamfuza, depending on the age. So at the end of the day, ni nani anafaa kublamiwa for that?
I think everyone is to blame. Kuna the community, kuna the parents. Alafu, you see, like at that young age, unapata like if parents hamemfungia sana, alafu we usually tell our kids, sex is wrong. You're not supposed to. Na unajua watoto, we are very curious. Atataka kujua like, why is sex wrong? Then they'll want to experiment it. They'll go there like, Otis, can we experiment here? We see why the adults say like sex is wrong. So from there is when like maybe pregnancy comes in, or maybe poverty. Poverty inaweza force mtu aende afanye nini to engage in sex.
Yeah.
You find that this is a girl from a very poor background, and maybe she needs pads. Na unajua like maybe that young boy who is 17 can maybe offer that
and provide the pads
for her. So like atamwambia, in exchange for me to give you the pads, you have to sleep with me. So like if this girl was informed, given the right information, equipped with the right skills, atajua like, no, I'm not supposed to do this. This is the maybe nitafute kwa njia nyingine, but not through sex. Nitafute kwa njia nyingine hizo pads.
And hapo kwa information, because sahi parents are watching us. They're watching maybe with their kids who are below 18 years old. Na unaongelelea hiyo kitu ya parent telling the kid sex is wrong.
Yeah.
So how should they frame this kind of education? Because education si ati ile kwa shule pekee.
Yeah.
It's not confined at kwa walls shule pekee yake. Education can be anywhere. Yeah. Right now hata hapa inaweza kwa education. Yeah. So education, because earlier ulikuwa umeongelelea parents and how they actually educate their children on the same. So how should they do that? Mzazi anafaa kuwa anafunza mtoto wake aje?
It should be an open talk. Like, for example, I have my baby girl. Nitamkalisha chini, and then to kuena that open discussion whereby if I tell you something is wrong, and I'll tell you like, yes, sex is bad, but these are the repercussions. Like, ukifanya hivi, this and this will happen, and if at all, like, unajua kuna wale wenye ukifika, they are very sexually active. Hata mzazi ajaribu kumkataza, like we should just be, tukue very open. Tusiseme ile mtoto wangu hawezi fanya, like hawezi. No, you need to have that leeway yenye.
Open mind.
Yeah, if this happens, this is how you should protect yourself from HIV, from teenage pregnancies and everything. Because you see, like statistics show that if wale watu wenye they get teenage pregnancies, they are more likely to suffer from sexual and gender-based violence. Why is that? Because those people, like, they are not that much knowledgeable, empowered, so that unapata like most of them when you undergo teenage pregnancy, from the age of 10 to 19, unapatanga some are very timid and they are forced into early marriages. Yeah. Wakuwa forced into early marriages, so unapata like anasema like sasa nitaenda wapi?
Yeah.
If anything, if anything happens in that marriage, ata stick to that marriage because she has nowhere to run to. Yeah.
Still on the same. I mean, how tunafaa kufanya hii education aje? Because utapata mzazi atakwambia no, mtoto wangu sasa yako 6 years old. Mimi sianza kumfunza hizo vitu.
Yeah.
You know, even the kind of movies, kind of cartoons unatafutia mtoto, unatafuta ile, you know, general exhibition au unatafuta PG. Mtoto akishakuwa kidogo, so how should the education be depending on the age? Mtoto wa 6 years, mtoto wa let's say 12 years, mtoto wa 17 years.
17 years. So I'll say first, CSE, comprehensive sexuality education, inajua that abstinence iko, it's a way. Okay, so in certain age groups, we'll preach abstinence if they are not sexually active. Unaona? And then the beauty of it is that inaona the other side. What if this young person is not, is sexually active? Yeah. What action should that young person take? Unaona? Na pia ukisema about hii conversation ianze wapi, mimi ndasema ningependa sana mimi nikizaliwa nikigrow up, mamangu alikuwa ni raise akinifundisha hizi mambo. Si ningekuja kujua nikiwa hivi mkubwa. Juu hata mimi ndio nifike hapa nikuwe interested kuingia kwa hii field yenye niko, ni kitu yenye niliona mtu close kwangu amepitia, ikaenda up ameacha shule yake and everything juu ya teenage pregnancy. Unaona, na kitu tu angempe that information, angemaliza shule, angekuwa mali pengine sahi, unaona, na hiyo yote. So kenye mimi nasema ni tunafaa localize into our context in terms of wewe unakuja kwa community gani, tuko na culturals and nini gani, how do we incorporate that sex education with what our culture does? And it's that easy.
You know, like when you talk about comprehensive, we are using the right-based approach. And when you are using the right-based approach, doesn't mean like when I approach mtoto wa 6 years, naanza kumwambia like, you know, you are supposed to have sex like this and this and this. No.
So unafumfunze aje mtoto wa 6 years?
Umejua mtoto wa 6 years, nile unaanza like you teach according to age-wise.
In terms of, tuseme kama mtoto wa 6 years, msichana, utamfundisha about menstrual hygiene. Hiyo ni right yake ya kujua. Na one thing I love about our policies and everything is that it recognizes that comprehensive sexuality education is key to everything. Like in Article 53(1)(b), it states that every child has the right to free and compulsory basic education. Ensuring sex education in our school and embracing that in our curriculum, we are fulfilling that article.
Kuna kitu fulani amesema, even when you're teaching the girl child who's 6 years, unamfunza menstrual cycle yake nini and how all that goes. But now for the boy, what do you teach him? And now is there a bias when it comes to kitu unafunza msichana na kitu unafunza mvulana? What the boy child gets in this whole sex education, value yake, na kwa the girl, who really needs the sex education? Is it the boy or the girl?
Both. Because like for sex to happen, it needs them too. And also when we talk about comprehensive sex education, we are not only talking about sex, we are also talking about, we have sexual and gender-based violence. And for sexual and gender-based violence, we are talking about how to prevent the sexual and gender-based violence. We talk about where to report. And you see, like, the gender-based violence also happens to men. But you see, since we don't talk about it, or we don't talk about it to our boys, they don't report it. Utakutana na msaa amegongwa, but atakwambia nilijigonga jana place fulani. But ni kitu yenye ime happen kwake. But tukipata like ukuje ufunze to both the boys and the girls, boys watajua kwamba if such a thing happens, this is how I'm supposed to approach it. I'm supposed to follow ABCD route. Yeah. Alafu like tuseme about menstrual health. Tukifundisha our boys menstrual health, si ataona msichana maybe mess, alafu they start laughing about, you know, like at that age, ataanza kucheka about it or something. No, atajua like this is happening and this is how I'm supposed to approach it. Labda nimsaidie hivi ABCD. Yeah.
Right. And as earlier alluded, the whole debate that was in the National Assembly in July, you know, some MPs opposed to it, some, you know, proposed, and this particular, so it was a whole motion by, let me get that right, it was a motion sponsored by Kirinyaga Woman Rep, that is Jane Maina, seeking to introduce health, wellness, and sex education as a core subject in the curriculum. So basically, some MPs, now those who are, you know, opposing it, were saying it is up to parents to guide the children when it comes to their sexuality. Hiyo mwalimu asiguze kabisa. We mwalimu ufunza kama ni parts of the body, wachia hapo. As a parent, when my child comes back home, I'm the one who should be teaching that. That is according to some MPs. What is your take on that? Because I mean, alikuwa ameanza kuongelea the whole, you know, how even the parent should raise, and even as we talk about venye unafaa kufunza, but role ya mzazi hapa sasa inafaa ikuaje?
So what I'll say, it's a really good idea that parents should be having this conversation with their children at a younger age. However, first, as the nation or as government, they should embrace it so that it could be easier even for these parents to accept and have this conversation with their children. Ni kama venye utaambiwa, like if government doesn't agree with sex education, hakuna parent mwenye ata agree nayo, hakuna parent mwenye ata kalisha mtoto wake chini amwongeleshe about this and this, ukifanya utapata HIV, ama ukifanya hivi na hivi uta-end up kwa teenage, uta-end up kwa pregnancy at a younger age, unaona? So if we embrace as our government, if it embrace this comprehensive sexuality education that is age appropriate, even our parents watakuwa na source ya kutoa hizo information, because currently even parents don't know what to, even where to start having this, like kuanzia wapi wataanza hii conversation na watoto wao, kuanzia wapi, kwa topic gani ama nini, unaona? Because I want a clear thing, a clear document or a clear source of information yenye wanapata ya sex education, how parents wenyewe ndio wakuja kuempower. So we are telling our parents to start this conversation, and they don't even have that information.
Yeah,
and even as you're chiming on this, I would enjoy if you really support that whole move to kuachia wazazi your role ya kuwafunza. Do you think kuna proper framework ya kuguide the required parental consent for students to receive the sexual education? Kuna framework inafaa ikuwe for parental consent?
Yeah. Alafu, like, I'm not supporting like for them leaving the whole thing to parents, because parents wanahitaji kwa intakana kukuwe na something to build on, ndo wakuwe na that information. Yeah. Because in our community umejua, it's a taboo to talk about sex. And from kitambo, so you see like how parents wetu wanaiona kama taboo. So you can't tell a parent aanze kuongea about sex, something which is a taboo. So I think it needs to start from shule, so that wakikuja nyumbani, they just build on that. And pia intakana kukuwe na that community involvement, whereby parents maybe kuna ile wana engage parents, like I think shule yenye mtoto wangu anasomea, what they do before they discuss anything with the children, wanaita parents.
Wazazi,
wanaita parents, then they say like, we need to educate you about this topic. So they'll talk to you about that topic before going to talk to the children. Wakishaongea nao, majua obviously mtoto atakuja nyumbani na maswali. So you build on that. So that's what I think we should embrace. Ile yenye we have to involve our parents in education. The whole community, like community involvement. Whereby kama kuna zile training zenye zinaendelea labda kwa community, we call like maybe watu the community wakuje, we tell them today we are talking about sexual education and we are talking about ABCD, like everything concerning sex education. Pia kwa shule waite parents and they tell them like we are going, it's like sasa tunaanzia from the grassroots, like from the lower level, tukienda juu tunawaeducate, then sasa wakifika shule waanze kueducate the children, wakikuja nyumbani wapate like waanze kuuliza maswali, at least mzazi akona something
kusema.
Yeah.
But
Ermias, now the big question hapa ni hapo kwa shule kuna material enough ya kufunza watu when it comes to sex education? Because I mean right now when you take a look at when walimaliza the CBC, the KEPSEA assessment, and hata when wamaliza 844, they set to join, the whole CBC. Ikianza sasa vizuri, getting out of, facing out 844. And KCD natuambia, sex education is not advocated, comprehensive sex education is not advocated in CBC. So that's one challenge. The other challenge is the whole parent versus, not parent, but teacher versus student ratio. Are there enough teachers to even teach this? This particular sex education? In specific, and mostly because in private schools, people would say, well, private schools have the advantage and upper hand, and most in urban centers because there can be enough ratio for that. They can employ one teacher just for sex education. But for primary schools, for the public sector, are they able to actually do this?
So I believe in every public schools we have a guidance and counseling teacher. It's a lot of work giving all that thing to one teacher. However, we can have collaboration in terms of how she's saying it, community engagement. In terms of, I am a change leader, I am capable of delivering age-appropriate human sexuality education. If the government embraces human sexuality education or age-appropriate comprehensive sexuality education, with partnering with the relevant stakeholders who are implementing such issues, we can lobby and try to work to reduce the cases of teenage pregnancy, the cases of FGM, the cases of early marriages, na yoyote. So what I'll just add is at age appropriate human sexuality education, haifai tu kwa shule. Like kama sai tuko on a long holiday. Unaona? Like wako nyumbani, watoto wote wametoka shule. So nani anawaguide? Hawana walimu hapo. So the government inafaa could take the initiatives of even starting programs that are community-based program, like partnering with community CBOs, NGOs that are in the community to try and deliver age-appropriate human sexuality education, because it's really easy. We just have to embrace it.
All right, so hold that thought. I want to cross over to somewhere else. We'll hold that thought. We'll be getting into and finalizing this particular conversation in a few. But turn to cross over to our very own George Maringa now on a whole different kind of conversation when it comes to matters higher education funding. And there's a whole Mount Kenya University breakfast meeting on the education scholarship and funding on the same. Maringa, very good morning to you from where you are. Kindly update us on that particular meeting.
Top of the morning to you, Stanley. Indeed, in furtherance to the wonderful and candid conversation on matters education that has been going on in the studio, right here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, the weather has provided the perfect ambience. Today, the sun is out, and the Mount Kenya Foundation the MKU Foundation rather, is having a breakfast this morning, a meeting on higher education scholarship and funding. We understand, of course, that matters education are very pertinent to the society, and especially higher education. However, in the recent times, then how do parents, how do the Kenyan society, how does the Kenyan population then find itself in a position or position itself to be able to acquire this higher education that is very important to various people in various fields? And joining me now for that in-depth conversation briefly is John Koigi. He's the Executive Director of MKU Foundation. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Briefly, we are here in Westlands, Nairobi, for this breakfast regarding the higher education scholarship and funding. In a nutshell, what is today's event all about?
Thank you, George, for having me. As you well know, the recent changes in the university funding by the government, which took effect in September this year, has impacted greatly on the issue of access to university, especially affordability. So we thought, as MKU Foundation, we can bring together the benefactors, that is the donors, the NGOs, the trusts, the foundations in that sector, to explore ways in which we can partner and bring more students to the universities. What can we do as a group to ensure that no student is left behind? So basically that's what we are exploring. This is the first in a series of several events which we'll be having, and we will share with you the outcomes of the deliberations, and we are looking forward towards a brighter future for our university students. Yes.
Perhaps to tell our viewers, whom do we expect in the education sector, in the fields of education, higher education, perhaps to be gracing the event today?
Yes, thank you very much. Some of the participants in the forum include the national government, CDF, which does enormous work countrywide in terms of giving scholarships. We have the NGO Coordination Board, who are partners in organizing this event. We have Islamic Relief, which do enormous work, especially in the northern area of Kenya, and several other foundations. Yes.
And perhaps as you wind up, what would be some of the expectations you have as the MKU Foundation to be able to see, moving forward, that in the new year, even 2024, more funding is accessible to students countrywide?
Yes, that's a very good question. What we do as Mount Kenya University currently, I don't know whether you know this, but we are currently the most affordable institution of higher learning in the country. And we have implemented at a corporate level several mechanisms that reduce our cost of operation, and these costs of operation are transferred to students in terms of lower fees. So we are going to share that model, we are going to share that model, and we'll see how our partner organizations can replicate the same in their places of work so that we can increase that scholarship pool. We also intend to trigger the participants. We can come up with one united scholarship as benefactors, and also now we put money in that pool, and then we pass on that benefit again to students who are needy and deserving. Thank you very much.
Indeed, such a great discourse, and we look forward to that. John Koigi, Executive Director of MKU Foundation. I now speak to the DVC, that is Dr. Peter Kerera, the DVC Administration and Planning at Mount Kenya University. Thank you so much, Dr. for joining us. The institution, of course, Mount Kenya University, being a high institution of learning, what are some of the challenges that you see that deserving students, especially Kenyans, require, and perhaps in the way of mitigation, how does MKU then come in?
Yes, thank you very much. As you realize, MKU is a multi-campus university, and therefore it means that you have campuses across all the counties in Kenya. And when you go to those counties, the purpose of creating campuses is to make sure that access to education is there for even the far-flung students from far-flung areas. And what, of course, that means is that some of those students are not able to afford education. And what the university has done is to create an internal funding mechanism where every year we have money set aside to give scholarships to students who are deserving and who are needy. So we have put in place a very elaborate way of determining who is most deserving. Of course, we look at where they come from. We have metrics of measuring the people who are needy, and the ones who are needy and deserving are supported. Because we have many students, you find that the funding that we have at this point may not be enough to support all the students who may benefit from that funding. And in this day and age, when we want to make sure that as many students as possible are able to gain higher education and complete on time, we want through the foundation to bring together partners and ask ourselves, in the light of the new funding model that the Executive Director has talked about, how can we come together and ensure that no student is left behind because of the fact that they cannot afford?
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Kerera. He is the DVC Administration and Planning at Mount Kenya University, that is MKU, and we look forward to the deliberations of this important and pertinent conversation that is going on in the room just behind me. And perhaps you may be able to see activity. We have our colleague Jones, who is already in the inside, that is in the auditorium, to be able to show you just what is going on regarding that important conversation. A breakfast meeting on higher education scholarship and funding courtesy of MKU Foundation. Of course, among the participants that the Executive Director, that is John Koigi, has been able to mention, I also spotted Esther Akoth, famously known as Akoth. She's also here. It is an important conversation, and those of us at home, the youth, young people, parents, as well as benefactors, as well as guardians, looking forward to further their education for their children. Please tune in to TV47, the home of untold stories, to be able to catch this important conversation that we shall be bringing you live on our channel as we look at the higher education funding regarding or rather coming at the backdrop of the model that has been issued by the government. My name is George Maringa, handing you back to studio, but of course we continue the coverage of this event right here in Westlands.
Definitely be taking a look at that particular event in Westlands, and we also hope to have Dr. Donald Asiko Kumu, who's an educationist, just to also tell us more on that particular bit of higher education. In studio, having a whole conversation on sex education in schools and how it should actually be done. And we have had a myriad of discussions, and I really want to have the final thoughts from panelists here, Sylvia Winger and also Mirias Miles. I think earlier this month, the 12th of this month, basically, during the whole Digital Health Week, you'd written in one of your articles that in your hands, digital tools become sources of empowerment. It's just not about using apps, it's about removing barriers to access healthcare. Broadly, as we discuss matters, sex education, and even, still here, matters of healthcare, how can we use technology to actually bridge that gap?
Thank you for that question. Actually, we have some platforms that are embracing the digital platform. And we have one called Nimechanuka. It's an online platform which offers information, and also it refers you to access youth-friendly services in terms of if you want any services to be offered. And I feel like as governments, as private entities, as institutions, we should, or the society, we should leverage on the digital platforms that we have. It's really easy, and in this era, every young person is in the digital space. So we should leverage on that, and it's a very good intervention too.
Right. Briefly, in a sentence or so, your last words.
So my last words would be, in embracing human sexuality education, we are empowering our young to take good to have good leadership skills, to have good values, to have good ethics, and we are nurturing a world where it's a journey. I call it's a journey where nurturing bright minds, and answering their curious questions and thoughts that they have. Yeah, thank you.
Even for your final thoughts, schools are opening on the 8th of January. As of what should we be doing when schools open? It's a new academic calendar, new fresh minds and all that, but the whole thought in the flesh, sex education will still be there. How can we ensure that it is actually there in schools as schools open next year?
I think we should embrace comprehensive sexual education, and we should start implementing it in schools. That is, maybe the government should allocate some funds for the program, and for the schools, they should try and engage parents, because parent engagement will reduce the stigma and maybe the notions, all the notions behind sex education.
Right.
Yeah.
Your last words in a sentence or so? So
my last words is we should embrace comprehensive sexual education, because the right-based approach will help in reducing the rate of HIV infections, the rate of new teenage pregnancies, and it will also encourage healthy relationships, and thereby ending the rate of gender-based violence.
All right. Asante sana. Sylvia Winja, advocacy champion on matters girl child education. She is also the leader of Nguvu Change Leaders. Curious. So that means everyone there is also a leader. And also, Ria Smiles, or if you like, Dambalesh, an advocacy champion on matters sexual and reproductive health rights with the Network for Adolescent and Youth Africa. Asante sana, Damalesh, and also Awinja, for all these particular, thoughts. I hope the Minister of Education was listening to this. I hope members of Parliament were listening to this. I hope school heads were listening to this and, actually take note of that. We also, remember we told you having a whole jump-packed kind of a show for you to, learn and all that. So we'll also be having our